Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the shop. Here's an RV10 update. The biggest news is I probably didn't work on it at all since about June or something like that. Summer's usually, I don't know, I just get burned out sometimes and end up walking away from it for a while, and that's what happened. Not surprising for me. I hope the rest of you guys that are building or watching any of these don't fall prey to that same thing. And I'm talking to you, Scott. Get back to work on your project. I want to see an update. Hope everything's okay with everybody. Everybody's staying safe and healthy out there. So far, we're all good here. As you can see, I've got the panel up on the bench now. I'm starting to wire the back of the devices, and I'll show you here in a second that I've got wire pretty much finished in the baggage area or behind that bulkhead and pulled up to the front. So I'm kind of up to that point where I'm ready to start including the panel stuff. So here you can see again, this is the back of the panel. There's the G5 on the right hand side, so that's where it'll come to first. And we're really talking about the CAN bus, but then of course everything else. So then here's the first touchscreen display. That's the G3X. And then over here I've got the audio panel, the Navcom. I forget the name of that. Well, I think it's a 650. That's all Garmin stuff. And then in the bottom there is the autopilot controller. Then there'll be another screen over here and a handful of other things included there. I've for a long time thought about trying to do a video on how I do the CAN bus wiring. I have never figured out a perfect way. I'm frustrated with it every time I start working on it, because if any of you guys remember how the old computers work, like when Commodore started getting real popular back in the, I guess it was the 80s. Like on a disk drive, it was all daisy chained, and it would have two connectors on the back of all of those peripherals so that you could daisy chain to the next. So if you had two disk drives, the first one would plug into the computer, the second disk drive would set on top of the first disk drive, and then there would just be a cable going from the first one to the second one. I don't know why Garmin and some of these other companies don't do something like that. It would be so simple if there was just a second one of these ports probably that had jumpers running from the first one, so that you could just plug in a cable and go to the next one. So since they don't, you're stuck with doing some cobbled up wiring and soldering, which, as we all know, is kind of frowned on in an airplane because there's so much vibration that things just start to vibrate and crack. So the way I do it, and if people really want to see this, let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can come up with a good video. But I just don't have a good solution. I don't like any of the things I've tried, and I've tried several different approaches. I end up doing soldering. What I'll do is put a pin on there, then I'll strip a little bit inside here, so it's just revealing a little bit of the conductor in there, and then I take this wire, which is going to the next appliance, and then I strip the end of that. I wrap it around that stripped area and solder it, and then I cover all of it up with heat shrink. And then kind of the same thing here with the shields. Those will get twisted together, and then I bought the whole bundle of those green ground drain wires. Just makes it easy. You don't have to cut wire and strip and all that. But then you wrap that around there, put a connector on the end of it, and then that gets attached to the back shell or the cover that goes around the connector. So that's where I'm at on that. My current experiment is trying to figure out, and I didn't remember this from doing the 6, but I'm sure there was some of it on that audio panel and probably on this Navcom. There are high density connectors, which means it uses a smaller pin, and that's what this is here. This is such a small pin that you cannot fit. This is 22 gauge conductor here. 22 gauge wire will not fit in that pin. So you have to either use something smaller, and that's what I'm going to try today. I've got some 24 around here that I'll see if an actual piece of 24 would fit in there. And if it does, I'm still not sure how I'm going to manage that. But I think what I did on the 6 was to just peel off a couple of strands of that connector that conductor until it's small enough that it'll fit inside that pin. So there's another issue with it. And I looked online hoping I would find, somebody probably makes this, but this is 2 conductor twisted pair shielded wire. And that's really typical for doing this Garmin CAN bus stuff. So you've got the two wires for the signal in the ground, or whatever they call it, and then the shield for CAN bus. I would expect somebody probably makes this in 24 gauge, because I don't think it needs to be that big, but that's what fits most of the standard connectors. You'll want this 22 gauge, but then what do you do when you get to the 24, to the high density pins? So there's a question. What do you do with that? How do you transition over to that? Here's the baggage area. It's pretty much done. I need to tidy up a little bit. I started even pulling that's the static, the yellow wire or tube in there. That's the static going to the AHRs, and then it's got a T connector right there that goes forward, because then I'll need to feed static to the G5 and also pitot pressure to the G5. And then I'll have to bring the blue hose, will come back here. That'll be the angle of attack. And then I'll also have pitot coming from the wing that'll come back here. So there I've got the COM2 radio, that's the GTR 20, I think it is. And then that smaller box is the G something 29, that's the data concentrator box. And then I've got an avionics master system and a bus and a ground strap down there too. Autopilot servo, the GMU, the magnetometer will be up there. And then I've got most of the wire pulled up the pilot side. You can't really see very well, but there's a bunch of wire pulled all the way up to there. And then I also have some stuff pulled up the co-pilot side. And of course up there's where the panel would sit. But that's where I'm at. I just thought I'd put out an update. I've probably only been back out here in the shop working every day for maybe going on the third week or the second week. So that's where I'm at. Hope everybody's well, and stay safe. We'll see you next time.